Okay, guys, want to talk to you about a book I've just read called Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday. Ryan Holiday, sorry. Ryan Holiday. Just been reading this. Fantastic book. Really enjoyed it. It's about ego and it's about what ego is, how it manifests in lots of different lives. He gives a lot of examples. He talks about famous figures from history like Genghis Khan, and famous Roman generals. I can't remember the names now. Because he's American, he talks about a lot of American figures as well. He talks about people like Nixon. He talks about the guy that started the DeLorean motor car company. He talks about generals during the American Civil War. He talks about Malcolm X. So he writes about Malcolm X and people like that. And he talks about how ego is this false self that sometimes gets inflamed, it gets the better of us, and it blinds us from the truth. And he gives lots of practical examples about what ego is and how it manifested in these people's lives. So in a way, he gives you little mini biographies of all these different people and how their ego might have gotten to a certain point, but then they kind of went down because they refused to see what was really going on. They stuck to a story about themselves, which is kind of like what the ego does. It gives you this false story, false self. And instead of focusing on the work that you do that actually got you somewhere, you start focusing on this story about what you are and what you've done. So it was really great. And when he gives you all these examples, you begin to see these things in yourself, because we all have ego, we all have that. And the most dangerous thing he said was that it's not just when you're in a failure, it's when you're in a success. That's when you start to believe the ego, because it wasn't you're successful because you are blah, 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 blah. You are successful because your family is blah, 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 blah. Your family is this great thing. You are this great thing. Your community is this great thing. Rather than actually focusing on the work and the effort that you put in to get yourself there. There's also another angle to it. You can actually say, well, you put in this work and effort, but a lot of it is luck. So ultimately, you also come down to it that perhaps it's the creator, perhaps it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, perhaps whatever you want to call the universe, whatever, a large element of it is luck as well. And it's not all about winning, it's about making work your standard rather than just winning, because anybody can win. You can win by luck, you can win, it's not just about winning, it's about having your own internal standards that you live up to. So anyway, it's a fantastic book, and he divides it up into different sections. He talks about ego in the aspirational phase, when you're trying to get to somewhere, ego during success, and ego during failure. So he talks about all these people where they've been able to hang on to success, or have become successful, and then they've fallen or maintained it because they didn't look to their ego, they looked to what they actually do. And he also looks at, ego in failure, gives lots of practical examples of that. And he sees how, not thinking about your ego during failure means that you develop what they call resilience. That's another catchphrase. Everybody's talking about being resilient. What does that actually mean? It means about doing the work and actually continuing with that, because that's what kind of got you there. So rather than, I'm so great, or my community's so great, or my family's so great, or whatever. I couldn't help, while I was reading this, think about things going on at the moment with the whole coronavirus thing. You wonder whether this is a blow to our collective egos, or the United States or Europe or whatever. And you can see a lot of things that come into that with this. There are some good bits at the end where he talks about some of his own I mean, there's a book that he talks about right at the end, in the epilogue, and the book is called "What Makes Sammy Run" by Bud Schulberg, which is, I think, a book I'm going to have to get, because he talks about this book, and in it he talks about a guy who has made got this huge mansion, got a lot of material success, and he calls the writer to him, the narrator. And the narrator doesn't really like this guy and wonders when this guy's going to get his comeuppance, his just desserts, because he's probably been a bit of a shit all his life, and think, when's he going to get tripped up for that? And what he realizes when he meets this guy in his lonely mansion, his marriage is broken up, he's got paranoia and all that kind of stuff. He realizes that he's already had the kind of the sort of results of that happen to him. He's not waiting for it; it's happened to him all along. In fact, he says that, he writes about it. He says, in that moment of vulnerability, the narrator catches a true glimpse into the man's life. His lonely, empty marriage, his fear, his insecurity, his inability to be still even for a second. He realizes that the vengeance, the bad karma he'd hoped for all the rules the man had broken, all the cheating ways he had gotten ahead, wasn't coming, because it was already there. So he talks about how ego manifests itself. Fantastic. I mean, really, really good book. I would really recommend it. I would probably give it at least an 8 out of 10. He's got another series of books. Another one is called The Obstacle is the Way. I actually bought all 3 of them, so I'm looking forward to reading them after reading this. He talks, I'll just leave you with one wee thought about this. He talks about this concept, and I wrote it down because I thought it was really, really good. And he talks about something that he learnt from a friend of his who's a martial artist as well as a philosopher. And he says that training is like sweeping the floor. So just because you've done it once, it doesn't mean that the floor is clear forever. Every day the dust comes back. Every day we must sweep. The same is true for ego. And I think that's a great point, that, there's ego is like the dust that accumulates. It's a sort of, we've got to clean it away. We've got to deal with it every day. It's what every major religion has been doing for years, for centuries. Every major philosophy tries to minimize our ego and make us realize that actually we've got to do the work to get the results. We are not intrinsically something within us that we've got to keep working to achieve those results. Anyway, I thought this was a fantastic book. It's a very much a practical book. It gives you lots of stories about these people, and he gives you examples of them. Even some people you think probably had the biggest egos in the world, like Genghis Khan. Actually, when you read this, you realize that actually maybe he didn't have this huge ego. He was always seeing himself as a student, which is very interesting. So he talks also about being a student always. So anyway, I hope you guys read this. I know at least one of my friends on the book club is reading this right now. I hope he does a review and tells me what he thinks of it, because I would really like to hear what his views are. And if any of you do read it, let me know, because and put a review on. I hope these reviews are helpful. I hope they kind of especially in a time like this, I hope people are, if they're reading this, it'd be nice to see what other people think of the books they're reading, so we can all get some benefit from them as well. Hope you guys are all keeping safe. Hope you're having life isn't too difficult just now. I'll speak to you soon when we do another review. Take care, guys. Bye.